The night was alive with whispers. Deep in the heart of the Congo, thunder rolled across the jungle. In a lonely village, fear moved from hut to hut, quiet, unseen, but heavy as the rain. A body lay in the mud, torn, mangled. The villagers said the claws were not of a beast, but of a man. They spoke of a secret brotherhood, men who wore the skin of leopards and struck in the dark. To some, they were killers. To others, they were guardians, defenders of old laws, spirits of justice sent by the ancestors. For generations, their name brought both terror and respect. They were the Anioto, the Leopard Men. In their world, the line between man and animal was thin, and to cross it was power. But who were they, truly? Monsters born of superstition, or protectors of a fading order in a time the world refused to understand? This is their story, the dark history of the Leopard Men, the forbidden cult of Congo. And tonight, their legend returns. To understand the Leopard Men, we must first understand the world that shaped them. Long ago, the Congo Basin was more than a stretch of forest. It was a living world, a heartbeat of life, spirit, and mystery. Every sound in the jungle carried meaning. The call of a bird, the roar of a beast, the rustle of leaves, all were voices of the unseen. The people of this land believed that nature was alive with spirits. Trees, rivers, mountains, and animals each held power. They did not see themselves as separate from nature, but as part of its great spirit. In their faith, a man's soul could speak to animals, and an animal could carry the spirit of an ancestor. Death was not an end, only a doorway to another form of life. Among these spirits, one creature stood above the rest, the leopard, strong, silent, watching. It was feared and respected, known as the guardian of balance. The leopard hunted with purpose, never waste, never mercy. It moved without sound, struck without warning. To many, it was a symbol of justice, divine, swift, and final. To the people, to become like the leopard was to hold the power of the spirit world. And from this belief, from the shadows of faith and fear, the legend of the Leopard Men began to take shape. They were said to walk between two worlds, man and beast, body and spirit, justice and death. This is where the story begins, in a land of spirits and shadows. From the deep silence of the forest, a secret brotherhood began to rise. They called themselves the Anioto, the Leopard Men. No one knew exactly when they began, but their presence spread across the Congo and beyond. They lived hidden among ordinary people, yet they answered to a world unseen. In those times, there were no written laws. The people believed that justice was guided by the ancestors and enforced by those chosen by the spirits. The Leopard Men became those enforcers. They punished those who broke sacred rules, betrayed their clans, or disrespected the old ways. Their justice was swift and feared. To join them was to give up one's ordinary life. Young men were taken deep into the forest, far from the eyes of the village. There they swore oaths of loyalty and silence. Their bodies were marked with sacred signs. Their skin was painted with ash and blood. They were given iron claws, sharp blades shaped like a leopard's paw. The elders told them, "You are no longer just men. You are the spirit of the leopard. You see what others cannot see. You strike when justice calls." To become Anioto was to be reborn, not in light, but in shadow. To outsiders, they became a mystery. To the people, they became both protectors and warnings. Through fear, they kept peace. Through secrecy, they held power. The leopard society grew stronger. Their influence reached villages, chiefs, and even kings. They became a hidden hand that shaped life and death in the forest. But every secret that grows too powerful eventually draws attention, and soon the world beyond the jungle would come searching for them. The peace of the forest did not last forever. When the white man came, the old balance began to break. Colonial officers, missionaries, and traders arrived with guns, churches, and laws written in foreign tongues. They did not understand the ways of the land, nor the spirits that guided it. They saw only fear where others saw faith. The world of the Leopard Men, once respected and secret, became the target of suspicion and control. Soon, strange killings began to appear across the Congo. Bodies found in the night, torn as if by wild animals. But the marks were too careful, too deliberate. The villagers whispered, "The Anioto have returned." In 1919, near the town of Boma, a colonial officer wrote in his diary, "The wounds looked like those of a leopard, yet no animal could have done this." Fear spread fast. The missionaries blamed witchcraft. The colonial police blamed savages. The villagers stayed silent. In truth, no one could say for sure who struck in the night. Some believed it was rebellion, the people's way of fighting back against foreign rule. Others said the Leopard Men were punishing those who betrayed the old gods for the new ones. To the colonizers, it was a nightmare. To the people, it was justice. The jungle had turned against the outsiders, and in the shadows of fear, the Leopard Men became more than legend. They became a symbol of mystery, of defiance, and of a power that no empire could fully control. But the Europeans would not stop until the truth was dragged into the open. The hunt for the Leopard Men had begun. The clash was not just of men, but of worlds. The Europeans came with laws written on paper. The people of the Congo already lived by laws written in spirit and blood. To the colonizers, the Leopard Men were dangerous. To the locals, they were part of the balance, harsh but sacred. But fear makes men blind. Reports began to flood in, strange murders, whispers of masked killers, stories of human sacrifice. Newspapers called them cannibal cults. The colonial officers, unable to understand, decided to destroy what they feared. In 1912, British explorer Sir Harry Johnston wrote of leopard societies that rule the night. His words spread like wildfire across Europe, feeding the image of Africa as dark and savage. But the truth was more complex. Many of these brotherhoods were not murderers. They were protectors of justice, healers and keepers of tradition, made secret because the new rulers outlawed their beliefs. Still, the foreign powers did not care to learn. In their eyes, Africa's ancient customs had to be erased, replaced, and renamed. The mask of the leopard became a symbol of fear, not faith. The colonial police began to hunt. Villages were searched, shrines destroyed, men dragged away for questioning. Some confessed under torture. Some never returned. The jungle grew silent, but beneath that silence was anger. The people saw their gods insulted, their protectors hunted, and their identity fading. The Leopard Men, once guardians of order, were now hunted like animals. But even cornered, they would not vanish quietly. And soon, their defiance would lead to trials that shocked the world. The clash was not just of men, but of worlds.
The hunt for the Leopard Men soon turned into something far greater, a war of truth and lies. Across the Congo and Sierra Leone, colonial officers began a campaign to crush every secret society they feared. Villages were raided, shrines were burned. Those accused of being Leopard Men were chained, beaten, and forced to confess. In the 1930s and 1940s, the trials began. courtrooms filled with silence and fear. On display lay the evidence: leopard skins, iron claws, and sacred charms. The judges were foreigners who could not speak the language of those they judged. Translators twisted words. Fear shaped truth. Some of the accused admitted guilt, but many did so only to stop the pain. In Kisangani in 1933, several men were sentenced to death. The papers called them murderers who worship beasts. Yet in many villages, people wept. They did not see criminals. They saw men who had served the spirits and kept the old ways alive. Justice, once sacred, had become a weapon. The colonizers called it order. The people called it the death of their faith. A grandson of one elder later said, "My grandfather was not a monster. He only did what our fathers taught us to protect the spirit of this land." But no one was listening. The trials went on for years. Some real killers were caught, but others were innocent men used to feed the story Europe wanted to hear. Fear became entertainment. Newspapers in London and Brussels printed tales of dark Africa, blood cults, and wild beasts wearing human skin. The world read and nodded, never questioning what truth lay behind the headlines. The Leopard Men had been defeated in the courts, but in spirit, they had only changed shape. Their story was no longer theirs. It now belonged to those who twisted it. And soon, myth would replace memory. As the years passed, the real story of the Leopard Men began to fade. In its place grew something else, a story told by outsiders. Colonial writers filled newspapers with fear. They painted the Leopard Men as monsters who worshipped death. Movies and novels soon followed. Posters showed men with claws and blood-red eyes. To the world, Africa became a land of horror, strange, wild, and dangerous. The truth was forgotten. The Leopard Men were never demons. They were men bound by old laws, caught between two worlds, their ancestors' world and the world forced upon them. Their story was changed to make others feel safe in their power. It was easier to call them savages than to understand their pain. But time has a way of revealing what lies beneath fear. In later years, African scholars and elders began to speak again. They searched old records and gathered stories that had been buried for decades. They found that many of these secret societies were not created for evil, but to protect justice, guide morals, and guard the soul of the community. What outsiders called cults were in truth part of Africa's spiritual heartbeat. One historian wrote, "When Europe saw a mask, Africa saw a mirror." The Leopard Men became a symbol of how easily stories can be stolen and how hard it is to get them back. But some parts of the old ways did not die. They changed. They adapted. And even now, in hidden corners of Congo, echoes of the leopard spirit still move through the night.
Today, the forests of Congo are quieter. The drums that once called the Leopard Men have faded into time. But their memory still lives, in the stories of elders, in the rhythms of dance, and in the masks worn during sacred festivals. Some say the spirit of the leopard never left, it only changed its form. In modern Congo and Sierra Leone, brotherhoods still exist. Secret groups that protect villages, settle disputes, and keep old traditions alive. They no longer wear claws or hunt in the dark, but they carry the same belief that justice is not just a law, it is a duty to the ancestors. For the people who remember, the Leopard Men are not monsters from stories. They are part of a long chain of guardians who stood between right and wrong, life and death, chaos and balance. One old man once said, "The forest never forgets those who defend it." And perhaps that is true. The jungle still breathes, the river still listens, and sometimes when the night wind moves through the trees, it sounds like the soft growl of something ancient, watching, waiting, reminding. The spirit of the Leopard Men may be silent now, but silence does not mean absence. It means they are still here, not in the shadows of fear, but in the memory of those who still believe. The story of the Leopard Men is more than a tale of fear. It is a mirror, showing us the line between justice and vengeance, faith and madness, man and beast. For centuries, they were seen as killers, yet in their hearts burned the same desire that lives in all of us, the need to protect what we love, and the fear of losing who we are. The Leopard Men remind us that power, when mixed with fear, can turn even the noble into the hunted. Their story asks a question that still haunts the world today. When men believe they are the only judges of right and wrong, what do they become? Perhaps the answer lies not in the jungle, but in us. Because the beast we fear most is not out there, it is the one we keep within. The legend of the Leopard Men will never fade. It will sleep, it will wait, and it will whisper to those who listen. This has been the dark history of the Leopard Men, Congo's forbidden cult. You have heard their story. Now hear their echo. Africa's forgotten stories still live in its soil, in its people, and in its silence. Subscribe to Ancient Africa Untold and walk with us through the mysteries, the kingdoms, and the truths buried by time. Join the journey. Hear the voices the world tried to silence. Let the whispers of the ancestors guide you.